The next morning, after Aaron, Celeste, and Leo had breakfast together, they were sought out by the mage and werewolf deans to come back to the administrative building. Celeste waved goodbye and said she was heading back to her room. Inside the familiar office, Alpha Matthews and Jacob were waiting for their charges.
We made an agreement with the school that considering the seniors who have returned already won't have classes for another 9 days, and you were both put in danger the school had sworn would never happen. We will be taking you both back home for the rest of the time allotted for the midterm.
Jacob said to the two of them with Alpha Matthews nodding agreement.
Go and grab anything you want to take home or need to work on, and we will meet you both at the portals.
As the kids left, both adults had noticed that they had been holding hands as they entered, and the care of Leo towards Aaron as they left.
Goddess, I hope he's finally told her,
Alpha Matthews muttered.
Told her what?
Jacob asked sharply.
She's his mate.
Not again.
Jacob paled.
Again?
Matthews looked more directly at Jacob.
What do you mean?
If they haven't made it, then there's still time for her to avoid heartbreak.
Jacob said aloud as though in thought.
Jacob, what are you talking about?
Jacob looked up sharply at the Alpha, his eyes misting over.
Before you make him reject her, just like Fauna's Alpha forced her to reject me. Do you have any idea what life I was subjected to after that? The pain? How hard it was to keep living.
I would never make him reject her. I've been supportive of Leo finally telling her.
Matthews paused.
You're the unnamed mage. I'm so sorry. It was incredibly wrong for Fauna to be made to reject you. Trust me that we have learned a very heavy lesson about that. So much of werewolf culture had to change because of that, and we are changing. I promise that Erin will always be safe with us. She was even marked as friend of the pack. Not only is it punishable by death to harm a friend of the pack, no matter what pack made the person a friend, it has also become punishable by death for anyone to force another to reject their mate after they have mated. Obviously, we will try and get ahead of an ancestral or too large of an age gap mating. But that is before a mating occurs. Please let us prove that we have learned our lessons.
Jacob was quiet for a while and then said,
When did Erin become friend of the pack?
Jacob knew of the specter she had helped to defeat, but was surprised to learn that the dead were who marked her.
Okay, I won't stand in between them, but I will be watchful.
That's all I can ask, especially from you.
They walked together to the portals, each lost in thought. Finally, Matthews said,
Did you ever find anyone after her?
They never lasted long. I have children from those times, but no one ever made me feel like she did.
I wonder if you have another mate out there. Hear me out.
Jacob nodded tersely.
Sometimes when a mate of a pair dies, especially if the living half is younger or has children, the family will bring by single wolves. Or if the singles meet-up is coming up, they will get them to go to that. If the heartbreak hasn't killed them, and they meet up with the right wolf, a new bond saves them. It's rough on them in the beginning, but it stops them from dying of the heartbreak. That you have survived so long speaks highly of your inner strength, but you don't deserve to continue to hurt if there is another out there for you. Will you come to our next singles meetup? It happens every June 30th, and different packs host it. I can even go with you if you don't want to go alone.
I'll have to think about it. It's too much for me to consider at the moment with everything else. But thank you.
I'll ask you again in June.
Jacob nodded his agreement and then slipped his mask back on as the kids walked up carrying backpacks.
We are going to head to the house first. We were able to get Katie Robertson and her parents over, and they are staying at the house. Mark Benning and his sire, Chester Miller, will be arriving after nightfall.
At seeing Leo tense up, Jacob turned to Alpha Matthews.
Does he not know of pack history with the gangrel?
No. We talk about that after they finish at Riverbrook, unless it comes up before then. It's easier to teach young wolves that all vampires are a danger to them than to try and teach them about different clans. All a vampire has to do is lie and say they are gangrel, and now they have a pup that thinks it's okay to listen to them.
The Alpha sighed and then addressed Leo.
A very long time ago, when other vampires caught us and even bred us to be servants and entertainment, there was one clan that stood against the practice. One clan. When I say this, I don't mean that most of the clan were against it. I mean that every member of the clan was against it. The gangrel vampires are the ones who are closest with nature and are the only that can naturally change shape to that of a wolf. They saw how they were treated for being more animalistic and didn't want an entire species to be treated the same way. As you know, the other vampires continued with their plans, and the gangrel began to seek out imprisoned werewolves and free them. When they discover the location of a fighting ring, they send the nearest packs information about what they have found and when they will be attacking so that we can then be prepared to take in those abused wolves. Understand that it is a secret war they fight. They may act like they want nothing more than to see a werewolf in a cage fighting for sport, because if they don't, they will never get invited to the games so that they can discover locations. So you must never act like you are okay with a gangrel around most mages and any other vampire.
Matthews explained.
Most mages?
Leo asked.
Yes, there are always going to be mages that are okay with vampires in general. In fact, many necromancers end up being very friendly with them. After all, a vampire and the dead have much in common and fall within aspects that necromancer skilled in death arcane can control. So a living dead like a vampire can become quite seductive to them. Regardless, continue to hate vampires to anyone else, because keeping that secret saves lives.
Matthews explained.
So, why are you saying that in front of my uncle? Shouldn't you be worried he might tell others?
Erin asked.
Or even me?
Jacob Blackwell knows how to keep secrets, and he understands the depths of that betrayal. And I'm telling you because you need to know if you are going to be hanging out with werewolves.
They stepped through the portal to the park Erin was familiar with. There were appreciative murmurs from Leo and the Alpha. Jacob led them over to his car, a 1985 red Porsche 944.
Uncle Jacob, I don't think we're all going to fit, or at least fit without being folded in half.
Erin protested. Jacob chuckled.
Nothing to worry about. Most of my cars have space magic added to them to make them bigger on the inside. I promise that you'll have plenty of legroom.
He held open the car door and pulled the seat forward so that Erin could get into the back seat. Dubiously, Alpha Matthews did the same for Leo on the passenger side. Erin crawled in and sat down, even though the seats were lower. She still felt like she had just as much leg room as a minivan. Leo and Erin looked over to each other with confused faces as Jacob and Alpha Matthews adjusted their seats and sat down. The Alpha looked equally confused while Jacob continued to chuckle.
You really think I managed to cart 3 kids around while maintaining my sense of style, without learning a few useful spells like this? Too bad the Lamborghini doesn't have 4 seats. I do love driving that car.
As Jacob drove, Alpha Matthews began to understand how Jacob had been able to survive the heartbreak. He had filled his life with new things and experiences. Having children to look after must have helped some too. His own heart ached for the man in the driver's seat. Once at the house, Bridget, the housekeeper, took Erin's and Leo's bags and took Jacob's and Erin's jackets. As Bridget left, Ruth came down the stairs escorting Katie and her parents.
Hey, Erin. Hey, Leo. I'm glad you both got back to your school okay.
Katie said as she got closer.
I'm glad to know you and Mark got back to your school too. How long did it take?
Mark was all rested up by the next night, and we were able to get to the outskirts of some town due to his speed. Got to a phone, and we're back at the school that night. Close to dawn, but we still made it.
The real conversation wouldn't happen until evening, so Jacob asked Colby to take the high schoolers out and show them around. He took them to the Black Cat Emporium where Susanna was holding down the fort. Deacon was at his day job as a physical therapist.
Hi, guys. Katie, how are you liking the East Coast so far?
It's a little warmer, but it's nice. The mountains are a bit smaller than I'm used to.
Katie replied.
We never had a chance to ask. Where are you from?
Erin asked.
Colorado. Boulder, specifically.
Deacon wants to go mountain climbing out that way.
Susanna replied.
Oh, there are some great climbing spots near me. Boulder Canyon is real nice, and El Dorado Canyon State Park has some great mountains to climb. But really, there are great climbing mountains all over Colorado, and some good hiking ones, as I'm guessing, are more your interest.
Katie replied. Susanna laughed.
Yes, I much prefer to go hiking over climbing.
Susanna laughed a little harder.
But I much more prefer to go shopping. What do you think, Leo? Want to go to the mall and hang out while Colby watches the shop?
Leo looked over at Colby.
Don't worry, I was expecting Susanna to take over.
Colby replied. Leo looked over to Aaron.
Did you want to go to the mall? And how is your hip?
I wouldn't mind doing some clothes shopping. Shoes, too. My gym shoes are a little worn.
Aaron replied. Everyone except Colby looked at her oddly.
You mean tennis shoes?
Katie replied. Colby replied.
Aaron is from one of the few areas that call them gym shoes. The others are Chicago and Cincinnati.
Wait, I thought you were from Michigan.
Leo asked.
I am. I actually grew up hearing all three, but gym shoes was the most common one where I lived.
Aaron explained.
You want to get really nuanced. I also grew up calling a sliding patio door a door wall.
Oh, that name makes no sense.
Katie giggled.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
Aaron smiled. Leo touched Aaron's arm to regain her attention.
How is your hip?
It should be okay, and if it gets really bad, the mall should have some kind of wheelchair.
Colby interrupted.
They do, and we'll make sure you get one if your hip starts acting up.
He looked over to Susanna.
Are you finished closing out the till?
5 more minutes.
She replied.
You're coming with us?
Aaron asked.
I thought you were handing us over to Susanna.
It's been a slow day, and coincidentally, anyone who was intending to come today will come tomorrow instead.
Aaron felt the swirl of magic and grinned.
Besides, I know that if I were to take you to the mall without Susanna, she would be very upset with me.
Susanna slipped on her friendship bracelet.
And I would find out.
She closed the till and closed the deposit bag for the shop.
Bank is on the way, and I'll just use the drop box.
What about Deacon? Won't he be finished in a few hours?
Colby asked. Susanna touched a tiny braid hidden in her hair and spoke aloud so Colby would hear.
Deacon, me and Colby are taking Aaron, Leo, and Katie to the mall. Meet us there.
There, that's been taken care of. Did you want to drive yourself and meet us there?
Colby asked.
Yeah, that should work. Then I can drop the deposit off, too.
The 5 of them spent the day at the mall, with Deacon showing up in time to have a late lunch with them at the food court. They each did a little shopping, Aaron getting a pair of jeans and a few shirts, and Colby surprising Aaron with a purse that was worn more like a belt pouch and strapped at the thigh so it didn't flap.
It's perfect. How did you know?
Aaron gushed.
I noticed you always just keep your stuff in your pockets, and a purse would be annoying while using your cane and holding hands with Leo.
He winked playfully.
I'm just glad you finally told her, Leo.
Susanna said.
It took you long enough.
How did you know?
Leo asked.
When I looked into your mind to get the details on that door, your bond ended up washing over me. That was really uncomfortable.
Leo blushed.
And I can see when people are fated to be with each other. It's like seeing a cord attached between 2 people. That means I can also tell when a couple won't work out.
Colby replied. Katie knew that she and Colby shared the same path, but realized in this moment how much stronger he was in his fate magic than she was. And for Susanna to break into a werewolf's mind? She didn't know any warlock who could do that. It made her wonder just what Aaron was capable of.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.